Hi Sherry, hi Chris, hi Mr. Barnes and family, hi Jared and Caden and everybody. This is Neely Salem, Joanna Salem's sister in Jerusalem. And when Joanna heard your tragic news about your loss, she was in tremendous pain herself and said, Neely, can you please shed some spiritual light on the matter? I work as a Bible teacher and I teach spiritual practices, and so the Jewish concepts about death and life are really profound and really stunning and quite comforting. And because I heard that your families are, from a religious background, and I heard that Mr. and Mrs. Burns raised beautiful Catholic families, and that also Chris's brother is a priest, I thought that you might appreciate some of these ideas. It's going to be a bit long because there's a lot to share, but it's really touching and it's quite helpful, especially in these trying times. So I heard about Judy and how splendorous and wonderful she was, and I heard about the 65th anniversary, and Mazel Tov, congratulations, it's such an incredible feat. In Judaism, one thing that differentiates the concept of death perhaps from the Western world is that we don't believe that the relationship is over after death. It's just a different permutation. Because the body is always temporary, the body will go, but the soul remains forever because it's eternal. So in Judaism, even after someone's physical body leaves this physical world, we still invite a relationship with that person. It's just not over, it's just different. So we can still talk to them, we can still engage with the soul, we can still communicate and share. And in fact, the truth is that while here on this physical world, if I'm in this room and you're in the next, we're separate because of our bodies, because our soul is enclosed in a body. But once a body retires and the soul lives on, we're actually way closer than we've ever been before. So maybe that's a new idea, maybe it's not, but it's quite beautiful. The other thing, there's quite a lot of ideas here. There's a concept of there's no such thing as going before your time, right? A lot of people, to comfort a mourner, might say, oh, they went long before their time. But if we're tuning into true faith in God, the God that holds the entire universe in place, that holds this ball of watery rock upon nothingness, we're upside down flying 500 miles an hour and we still stay on. The God that's managing every one of the 8 billion lives in the planet knows what he's doing, and he knows the appropriate time for everyone's life, and therefore takes life also at the appropriate time. And with faith and with trust, sometimes it's helpful to believe that, because sometimes grief comes from the place of it was before her time. So if it's okay with you, I would like to share with you 3 stories that really changed my life in regards to death. The first comes from a story of a friend of mine, sweet woman, a religious woman, and she unfortunately birthed a stillborn. And the baby hadn't died just until the last moments before birth. And this is incredibly difficult. It was her first child. She didn't know what to make of it, except for she said something absolutely incredible. Right after she had the baby and experienced this tragic loss, she said, I'm the luckiest woman in the world. And we're like, what are you talking about, honey? We're so sorry for your loss. What do you mean? And she's like, no, you don't understand. I birthed a baby from heaven into heaven. Meaning the baby was alive in her, and when a baby is alive in a human, so their soul is still in a heavenly realm. And when the baby comes down into this world, so it's in a humanly realm. But her, because the baby died in her womb, she said, I birthed a baby literally from what's called Shamayim in Hebrew, heaven, into Shamayim. So she understood from this that this soul that was given to her must have been such a high-level soul, because the only fixing the soul had to come into the world and do was to be in her womb for those 9-10 months. In Judaism, we believe that a soul comes down to do a fixing. We believe in reincarnation, and we believe that souls come back multiple times. So why don't we believe that death is a bad thing? It's a painful thing, it's a difficult thing, but it's not a bad thing, because essentially when a body leaves this world, it's an indication that the soul has completed its mission. So when my friend had this stillborn, what she understood was that her baby had completed its mission on earth before it was even born. And so she also understood that she must have been carrying an incredibly, incredibly high soul, a very special human. And so she felt honored to have the privilege of doing that. So it's just one way of kind of understanding death a little bit differently. And there's two other stories which I think are quite powerful. My teacher, her name is Leah, and when I started learning Torah, Bible from her, I wanted to be just like her because she's incredible. And she was married for 35 years to the love of her life. And unfortunately, a few years ago, he passed away from cancer. But the most unbelievable thing happened, First of all, when we were in synagogue, he would come over to the women's section because, we pray separately sometimes. And he would whisper through the curtains, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. They were just madly in love. They were so madly in love that actually they met and 2 weeks later they were married. It sounds like a crazy situation, but they knew they were soulmates right from the start. So they had 6 beautiful kids together, and a few years ago he passed away. Now, he passed away on the Hebrew date, which is the beginning of the month of Adar. Now, in Judaism, the month of Adar is the happiest month of the year. And we have a tradition that when the month of Adar comes in, you're supposed to increase in happiness. No matter what it takes, do whatever you can to increase your joy. Now, it just so happens that he died on the first night of this month. And the first night of the month has the most energy for the energy of the month. So this first night of the month, which is called Rosh Chodesh, or the head of the month, it's brimming with an energy of joy. So it's very weird and uncomfortable to have to bury your husband on that night. And it was a rainy night, and the cemetery was a new cemetery, so it hadn't been fully paved. So we're standing in the mud, in the rain, and we just finished covering his body with dirt, which is one of the Jewish traditions. And she stood there, and she had a cane, and she dropped her cane, and she raised her hands to heaven, and she starts singing and dancing this song in Hebrew that goes, whoever enters this month shall increase in joy. And she starts dancing. And we didn't know what to do because it was such a stark contrast between the mourning and the joy. And we all started to join her in song and dance. And it was a very bizarre experience, but one of the highest experiences of my life, because she deeply understood the meaning of death. And she knew that even though she was going to miss him with all of her heart, all of her soul, and she never expected it to happen, and she just never believed it could happen, that she understood that if God took her husband in this time, then it was absolutely the most perfect thing that could be. It was the highest way God could love her husband the most, to let him be done on the earth in that moment in time, and that she could introduce an element of rejoicing into her life even as she mourned for the loss of her precious husband. And the third story, I hope it's not too close to home, but I want to be real with you, and these stories are very real. And this story I learned from a man named Rabbi Kaplan. And he says, a few years ago in Israel, there were colleagues driving home from work together. And there was a man and a woman. And the man was driving, and he was very tired. And the woman in his car was the mother of 13 children, and a righteous woman and a beautiful woman. And unfortunately, he fell asleep at the wheel and ended up killing her. And this man was absolutely devastated. I mean, he felt like his life was wrecked. How can you be responsible for the life of a mother of 13 and have accidentally taken her life? And he just didn't know what to do with himself because he didn't know how he was going to face her husband. And the day came because, this had to happen, that they would have to meet. And he just fell on the floor groveling, I'm so sorry. And the husband says, stop. I forgive you. I'm not angry at you. And the guy's like, what are you talking about? I was irresponsible. I was tired. I should have had a coffee. How could I have done this? And the husband said, I'm not angry at you. And the guy's like, I don't understand. So he said, listen, this was my wife's time to go. And whether it was because of you and you were the messenger from God and you were tired, if it wasn't you, it would have been another way, because clearly God knows exactly when to take a body. And this was her time. He says, so I'm not angry at you. He's like, you have to do the work you have to do on your responsibility, but me, I'm not angry at you, because it was clearly my wife's time, and if it wasn't you, it would have been another way. So that's just mind-blowing to me. These stories really show unbelievable strength and courage. Now, I also want to share something particularly special with you about the time of your mom's passing, or your wife's passing. She died on Friday night of last week, and that, in the Jewish tradition, was the night we read about the death of our foremother Sarah, who is known as the first foremother, the first mother in our tradition that we truly celebrate. We do learn about Eve and the mothers before that, but Sarah is the mother of all mothers. She was the most beautiful woman in the world. And Judy passed away literally on the Shabbat where we read this portion about Sarah's passing. And of the 52 weeks of the year, the fact that a beautiful mother would pass on the night that we celebrate and learn about the death of our foremother Sarah is extraordinary divine providence. I was completely blown away when I came to realize this. And I want to share with you one teaching of our foremother Sarah from Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, who also passed away. It says that only a mother can give over to her child that God simply can't do without the children being here in the world. And because basically Sarah passed away when she was given a vision of the binding of Isaac. And when she thought that she was going to lose her son, she couldn't stand to be here in this world anymore. Sorry if it sounds a little difficult, but what I'm trying to say is that the message of a mother in this world is that her children are the most precious thing in the world, and she knows how much the world needs her children. So I thought that was quite a special thing as well. Finally, what I'd like to share with you is a condolence email that my brother once sent to a friend, and it was so on point, it was so precious to me that I've used these teachings to share with anybody that I know that experienced such a loss. And so I want to read it to you. I'm going to read it to you as if it was written for you. And so here's what it says. Essentially, he would have written it like this. Dear Sherry and Chris, we are so sorry to hear about the passing of your mother-in-law. The holy escorting angels will certainly be sweetly and gently whisking her upwards, higher and higher into more and more gorgeous, stunning places, where she will be able to increasingly feel the love that is pouring out of your hearts and the hearts of all those that loved her. Her soul is smiling so huge, looking at you two and all that you are. Wow, my son, my daughter-in-law, my grandsons, my family, my friends, they're such righteous, unbelievable, valued, self-sacrificial, moral people. Joanna told me a little bit about every one of you, and she said, in this regard, that if Judy is looking down, which she certainly is, from heaven, she would say, Chris, wow, the calm that weathers the storm, what an easygoing family leader. And Sherry, an amazing friend, intelligent, generous, and fun. And Jared, the kindest soul, gentle, thoughtful, loving, and smart. And Caden, curious, ready for adventure, sweet. And a family man with an enthusiasm for life. If only for this, Judy might be saying, I have lived such a beautiful, meaningful, complete, and perfect life. We're sure that these beautiful escorting angels will be taking her up to the one that loves her the most, the one who will hold and cradle her soul and let it glow brighter and sweeter than ever before, without pain and with new eyes to see the beauty of the life she lived. I'm sure if we could see this holy escort, this entourage of love and support surrounding her with radiant light and symphonies of the most unbelievable music and the tremendous love of her family, that we would all be blown away, reassured, and at ease. May her memory be a blessing, and may you always feel this love, her love, and encouragement. Perhaps you've heard this concept before, but it's one of the most precious concepts to help understand life and death. It comes in the name of our Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, and it says like this. It says, when a soul comes down to earth and a baby is born, we humans think that it's such a delight, it's such a joy, and we sing and we dance. But the angels in heaven, they're begging God, no, no, please don't send them down. This is a difficult world of pain, suffering, anxiety, distance from God. And the angels are in mourning for the temporary descent of this soul. And when a soul leaves the earth and returns upwards, we humans, we cry, we mourn, we're so sad. Rightfully so. But the angels in heaven are rejoicing, they're celebrating, they're overwhelmed by the joy and the happiness of this soul returning to its highest, sweetest essence. So Sherry and Chris, Mr. Barnes, and all of the family, heaven is having such a party right now. Such a joy. They're just overjoyed and excited to welcome back your holiest of holy mother. And I bless you to feel some of this. And I bless you to feel some of the supreme love, the universal blessing that your mother has been here in this world, that she has been, that she is, and that she will be for the duration of her eternal journey. May you be blessed to have the vision of all of the sweetest, most radiant angels escorting your holy mama up in the awesomest ways. And so as you mourn and as you go through your process, I just really want to bless you to believe that this is not the end of the journey. It's just a different permutation, that you could stay in touch with her, that she has actually completed her life mission, because God doesn't take anyone back before their time. I bless you to believe in the angels escorting her soul higher and higher to one that loves her the most. I bless you to know that on her side of life, she sees this all as beautiful. A very difficult story, but a true story, is that during the time of the Holocaust, when the great rabbis of that time were wondering, God, what are you doing to us? They came together and they sent up one of the living rabbis to heaven to have him find out what God was doing with all the suffering. And it says that when the rabbi got up to heaven and understood what God was doing, that he didn't utter a complaint. And he came back down to explain that to the people. And that even though it's a very difficult time to tune into our voices of trust, faith, and belief, that it is the only truth. The only truth is that this was the highest way God could love her and your family right now. And even though I'm so sorry and I can't imagine your unbelievable devastation and loss, there is beauty in it. Death is only painful because of love. Right? If we didn't love the person so endlessly, so infinitely, so much, then the death wouldn't even be a loss. So really what we're talking about here is a tremendous, profound love that you feel and an accomplishment of your mama for having completed her life mission. Finally, I just want to tell you that in Judaism, we have a belief in the resurrection of the dead and also in the times of the Messiah. If the resurrection of the dead happens before the Messiah comes, well then the good news is we get to dance and hug and be with those that we've lost again in the physical flesh form. You know, I often pray for this to happen because my mother misses her mother so very much, and I have these visions of my grandmother coming back into the house and just hugging my mom, and I could cry from it. So that's one hopeful, beautiful remark. And as we know, life flows like this anyways, so we're almost at the end of human history. And secondly, in the times of Messiah, everybody comes back, and we will all be together again, dancing in celebration with all of our ancestors and all of our descendants. And so I just bless you with some of this vision, and in the meantime, I bless you with comfort, and may you be comforted amongst the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. And I'm sending big hugs from Jerusalem, and may you have strength, and may you have courage, and may you have deep, deep faith in this trying time. I'm so sorry, and may God really bless you to be there for each other and to know that she's totally with you, loving you more than she ever could before in bodily form.